Hello, folks, and welcome to the second episode of Tuesday Tales. Reading from the book The Daedalus and Icarus, the first men to fly. Now, this is from the same story as last week. And I was just looking through the pages, and including the little drawing that they have here, it's a not even 4-page story. So this video will probably be my shortest main one yet. So you're seeing like how long my other ones have been. Let's just get started. Men have always been dreamers, and perhaps their oldest dream has been a dream of flying. Watching birds spread their wings and soar into space, people of the past must have longed for the day when they would be no longer earthbound and could somehow find a way to lift themselves skyward and sail through the air. The Athenian, Daedalus, and was one of those dreamers. But besides being a dreamer, he was also a doer. It was Daedalus, whose very name meant the cunning worker, who designed some of the most fabulous gardens of his day, who was the architect of the most magnificent palaces in Crete, who, as a sculptor, was so superb a craftsman that his statues seemed to breathe. It was rumored that they could speak to their creator, and there was Daedalus who had planned the amazing labyrinth for King Minos from the previous story of Theseus and the labyrinth from last week. After the labyrinth had been completed, King Minos feared that Daedalus might build another labyrinth, or even more secret a structure for someone else. For he had him shut up in a high stone tower. Daedalus, with the help of his young son Icarus, managed to escape from that stronghold, but he was still a prisoner on the island of Crete. There was no land in sight to which he could swim. Every boat that left the island was searched. It was then that Daedalus returned to his old dream, the dream of flying. There is no way of winning our freedom by land or by sea, he told Icarus. But, he added, as he watched the seagulls hover and rise, there is the air. That same day, he put his dream to work. Before we can fly, we must have wings, he said. And before we have wings, we must have feathers. Let us begin by gathering feathers of every sort, every feather we can find. Days were spent picking up feathers along the shore, trapping gulls to get their long pinions, assorting their finds. Meanwhile, Daedalus watched the way the birds took off. He studied their manner of rising and how they sustained their flight. He examined the wing structure of some of the captured birds and learned the adjustment of the smallest bones and the placements of the lightest feather. Then he began to build the wing. With thin, flexible pieces of wood, he made a frame, delicate but strong. To these he fastened various sized feathers with thread and wax. He pressed the small feathers toward the inside of the skeleton wing, arranged the long feathers in rows at the outside, and gave the whole a curvature like the wings of a huge bird. At last, Daedalus had a pair of wings greater than those of the largest bird. He fastened them to his shoulder, spread his arms, and lifted himself above the ground. The first attempt was clumsy. I didn't said his first, but anyway, he wavered, lost his balance, and, fluttering desperately, he fell. He had done what no man before him had ever accomplished. He had left the earth, if only for a few minutes. He had flown. His second flight was different. He learned how to control the motions, how to take advantage of the air currents, and float, how to glide smoothly instead of frantically. After his third flight, he could dip and soar and hang poised as securely as any gull. Then Daedalus made a pair of smaller wings for Icarus, taught him the flying motions, and after a while let him practice in ever-widening circles. He warned the boy about being too eager. It was weeks before the time came that Daedalus felt it was safe to risk an escape from the island. He had planned it carefully. They were to fly across the water to Sicily. Before they took off, Daedalus cautioned Icarus again. "Remember, my son, to keep the right altitude," he told him. "Do not fly too low, for if you do, the spray from the sea will clog the wings and make them too heavy. On the other hand, if you fly too high, the heat of the sun will melt the wax that holds the feathers together." With these words, the father and son rose into the air. They flew easily, side by side, steadily, serenely. People ran out of their houses to gaze at the unbelievable sight. Farmers lifted their hands from the plow to shield their eyes. Shepherds forgot about their sheep. As the pair glided over the sea, sailors let go of the ropes and their oars to stare and wonder. For the flyers, it was a continual excitement. Much too exciting for Icarus. Unlike Daedalus, who controlled himself with every stroke of his wings, Icarus became reckless with his new sense of power. He beat his wings ever more rapidly, rose higher, skimmed through low-hanging clouds, and thrashed toward the heavens. "Come back!" I shouted to Daedalus. "Down! Come down! Remember the sun!" But Icarus, giddy with youth and sheer joy of freedom, laughed and continued to soar upwards. Soon he was beyond the reach of his father's voice. He looked down, exulting in the height. The island of Crete seemed no larger than a small boat bobbing in a pond. Ships looked like toys scattered on a blue floor. He loved the feel of the sun on his shoulders. He shouted with joy. Daedalus could barely hear him. Then the shout grew louder, closer, and Daedalus knew it was not a shout of joy, but a cry of terror. The blazing sun had done its cruel work. The wax had melted. Feathers were dropping from the wings, and Icarus was falling. There was no way to save him. Down he came, hurtling through the air. A helpless bird whose wings had been broken. Daedalus flew down after him, but it was too late. Icarus had sunk into the sea. A few feathers rose and fell on the waves, rather, my bad. Then the body of Icarus floated to the surface. Daedalus hovered heavily burdened, flew with it to land. There he buried his son along the shore of the sea that ever since has been called the Caribbean Sea. Then weeping, he took his wings off and flew never again. Now that is where we shall leave the story for now. I'm sure that a majority of these stories in this book you have heard, or maybe like at least like thought of. So there's this week's, there's last week's, and then I'm not gonna go through all of them. But there was the wooden horse from Troy, the return of Odysseus, the race for Marathon, the Fearless 300, the Leonic answer, the Spartan reply, Archimedes' Eureka, and then there's Marco Polo, there's now these I'm older. I'm just like much older to them, mate. And then there is Spartacus. There's The Sword in the Stone, not the Disney film Sword in the Stone, but the actual story that movie was based off of. There's Richard the Lionheart. There's Robin Hood, which will be interesting. There's King John and the Magna Carta. There is, like I said, Marco Polo. Then obviously that's not all, but that's just a few. So this weekend, starting Friday, I shall be releasing some more gaming videos, but they will hopefully be shorter and not on F1. So to kick off my history unit, I do have this book. So basically, this is like a mixture of my history unit and the details, but to officially kick off my history unit shall be a game called Enlisted. Now, that game, so that game I will be playing with someone else, but like I mentioned in my video yesterday, it is like I will be playing that game with Dosh Shrimp. He is a good friend of mine. We have been friends for some years now, and we do have a tendency to play for a while. So specifically with Fortnite, which I hope to get to that soon, but I am getting a bit too carried away. So I shall see you guys later.